big talking points as Premiership Rugby has resumed is the interpretation of the breakdown laws. We've seen it in the Southern Hemisphere. We're now seeing the impact of that in the Northern Hemisphere. So we bid a very fond hello to Wayne Barnes, who can talk us through exactly what's happening. Barnesy, you're in quarantine. Are you sure you're not still in Mallorca?
Well, I've just put myself in a little cupboard in my spare room just to make sure that, any suggestions that I'm still over sunning myself with the sangria are dispelled. I'm very much home, very much looking forward to joining you lot in a week's time and getting back on the pitch as well. It's been as frustrating for the referees as it is being for the players. We've wanted to get out there too, and hopefully I'll be back out in a week or so.
Great stuff. Well, Barnesy, you're going to talk us through what these new law interpretations are at the breakdown. Let's start with the tackler. What is the tackler's role, and what do we need to keep an eye out for? What are the referees looking for?
Look, Dave, I think what's really important to mention as well, at the top of the show, your Saints and Wasps coverage. A question to Lewis Ludlam was, what are the referees after its breakdown? Now, let's be really clear about this. This isn't what the referees have come and said to the players. This is the top coaches, the top players in the world saying, as part of a working group, this is how we can make the game safer, this is how we can make the game fairer, and this is how we can make it more understandable. So they've come out and said, can we help here? So we started off with a tackler. Always the same about the tackler. Let's get quick ball, let's get attacking play. So when you get someone like Marlon Yard here on the wrong side, we've got to make sure he rolls away. And then here we had Ollie Devoto down in the Exeter-Leicester game, first penalty of the game. Tom Foley, the referee, saying, look, let's clear that collateral all around the floor and let's have some attacking rugby. And we saw a lot of that today with Carl Dixon. I know you disagreed with a couple of them, but it really added to that game and that forward momentum.
What about the ball carrier, the tackled player? What are you looking for him to do?
So, look, back to what Ben said in that fantastic demo that he did earlier today. This is about having, a fairer competition. So if we're encouraging the tackler to get away, we've got to make sure that the tackled player then gets rid of the ball straight away. And here, Tamara Hammerson gets tackled, and then he jumped forward on his knees. And we saw that at Quins in the first half, at the end of the first half, when James Chisholm was penalised as well. And Lawrence in commentary said, you're stopping the defence affecting that turnover. And that's what happened there today. And that's why Carl Dixon penalised it, why Luke Pearce penalised it was all. We've got to have that fair competition, Dave.
The jackler, he's become sort of the folk hero in teams now. The player who can latch onto that ball, and he's like Olympic. You cannot get rid of him. What makes life easier for the jackler now? What makes life more difficult?
Yeah, just remind ourselves who the jackler is. That first defender there trying to steal the ball, and we saw two fantastic players at it today, didn't we? Thomas Young, your man of the match, and also Jack Willis. And then throughout the Premiership this weekend, we've seen Sam Lewis, Worcester, and Tom Curry at Sale. And here's some good examples. Tom Curry, first penalty of the game, he gets over the ball. Quins don't do well enough to clear him out. And here we had Harry Wells, Exeter versus Leicester. Alec Hepburn, the number one from Exeter, misses the clean-out. And so all of a sudden, you're getting players competing for the ball. But what we're saying, and we saw there with Dan Cole, the number 3 from Leicester, is you've got to be in a strong body position. That example that Ben used before the match, legs underneath your hips and really trying to pull at the ball. Dan Cole there got too long. So reward that jackler if he's being positive.
Barnesy, just before we move on to the next bit, the point that Ben made as well, that it aids in player safety, not just keeping the game flowing, but player safety. How important was that at these meetings at the Paris Symposium where you discussed all these breakdown regulations?
Number one on our list, Bafe. This was all about improving player safety. And if you remember Ben's example, demo at the start of the program, what we were seeing is players were bent over and their neck were exposed and they were just bracing until players arrived to clear them out. What we're saying is we want them lifted, we want them higher, and we want players who arrive cleaning them out safely, driving them backwards. And so the two things that we're looking for, first of all, is to make sure those attacking players don't come in from the side. if they come in from the side, we'll see contacts to the legs and the knees, and we've seen some big injuries about that. And if we have a look at some of those clips of that, we had Quins versus Sale on the weekend, and you see that a 9 from Quins over the ball, and Ben Curry took a shortcut. And we want to make sure, again, that players arrive on their feet. They're not hitting downwards. And there we had Oosthuizen just hitting off his feet. Again, DeLuga just hitting off his feet. We want to encourage players to drive those jacklers backwards so they're in a safer, more protected position. So that's what we're looking for, to protect those players and make it a little bit more safe.
Wayne, we saw a lot of penalties in the first weekend, and I understand you want players not to arrive on their feet at the ruck, but we saw a lot of players where players were diving in and losing their feet, losing their balance, and being done for sealing off, even though there was nobody there competing. Are we going to see a little bit more leniency on that, where somebody gets there, he goes to go past the ball as you want him to on his feet, but loses his balance? There's a big difference between diving down on the ball and just losing control of your weight. Are we going to see a little bit more leniency with that?
Yeah, I think that's a really nice example as well. So Dan Cole, that example we saw, he's just trying it on. He's getting too long. What we want players being moved away from the tackle, and if they're encouraging them, they're driving them away, that's perfect. But what we don't want to see is them hitting down onto a player who's exposed, or we don't want to see that stopping that competition. Austin, and we saw a couple of those examples in the Sale Quins. We want that ball in play. We want to encourage continuity.
Continuity comes from turnovers. What are you looking for? What are you going to allow with the turnover situation?
And I thought it was great that you showed the Northampton offloading game and the unstructured play. So if we look at a couple of the clips that we've already seen in the Premiership this weekend, we're starting to see turnovers, and we're starting to see that really entertaining rugby where all of a sudden, as I think it was Ben said in commentary, if we get 2 sets of hands, we've got this great attacking opportunity. So players are targeting the ball, and we're getting that unstructured, broken play, which is so compelling to watch. And then also what we've seen, and we've seen a bit of this weekend, and we've started to see it from Northampton, but the offloading game is back. And again, we're seeing that the ball is going off the tackle player on the floor, just little pop passes. And then we get, again, that continuity rather than players dying with the ball. And we've got 2 lovely examples of this. First of all, we had it in Exeter versus Leicester. You know, players not dying with the ball. They're offloading the ball to keep that excitement. And look at this wonderful offload here. Great offload. Rather than dying with the ball, waiting for the contest, we're getting continuity. And as you said in the build-up to the Saints match, Baif, that's what Northampton have been doing, but we should see more teams doing this, and that's what we saw across Super Rugby New Zealand, and it was so entertaining to watch.
Barnsley, I think you and your colleagues have to be commended, because there's not many sports where the referees come on and explain things. When you meet up next, is there anything that's happened this weekend where you think we haven't quite got it right, we need to tweak this or we need to tweak that? How will that process work?
I thought it was interesting when Ali said in commentary that there have been 27 penalties average this week so far. I think I've just been told that there were only 20 penalties. So what we're seeing are players are adapting. So we're seeing coaches adapting. So they're buying into what we've been asked to do. So that's fantastic for the game. So we should see that penalty count come down slightly. I think we still got to look around that pick and go area, Ben. So when teams do go around the corner, we got to make sure that equal competition is still happening there. But we're not going to get everyone right. And we'll go back to the directors of rugby Monday, Tuesday and saying, look, here are the clips that we got right, here are the clips we got wrong, but we're all still pushing ahead with what we're trying to do here.
Barnsley, thanks so much indeed. Thanks to you and your colleagues as well. You've got to hurry off. I'm sure they're singing by the pool, and maybe a big jug of sangria is waiting us. So we'll let you go down to the cabana for that. Thank you very much indeed. We look forward to seeing you back as soon as possible.